This is English Idioms for Business Success, an introduction, and I'm your course teacher, Joe Grande. In this course, you will learn business idioms to help you succeed in the workplace and improve your English. In each lecture, I will give you an idiom, provide you with a definition and an example. I have also created images associated with each idiom to help you retain it visually. The course is full of opportunities for you to use the idioms in virtual situations that might occur in a workplace, like this one. I would read what he's saying. You would then pause the video, make a response, start the video again, and I give you my response. There will also be many opportunities for you to evaluate your learning and try to recognize what you're missing and what you need to go back and practice. So, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in class soon. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 2, Sharing Good News, Lecture 2. So, in this section, we are going to be introducing and learning about idioms that deal with sharing good news. Now, this is good news you might be sharing with your coworkers or with other business partners. And our first one is, a rising tide lifts all boats. Definition: a force or occurrence that benefits everyone. This year, the robotics industry is doing well. Increased public interest in robots will lift all boats in our industry. So, to remember this idiom, you can think of an ocean. An ocean, when it's close to the shore, it will rise and fall each day due to tides. So, when the ocean rises, we call this a rising tide. A rising tide will lift all of the boats in the ocean or harbor. In the same way, an economy that is rising or improving will lift or help to improve all industries and all companies. Let's try this idiom in a couple of situations. In this situation, he says, "Wow, GDP growth is expected to be at 8% this year." If GDP growth is at 8%, the economy overall is getting better or rising. How might you respond to this comment? And in your response, use the idiom we learned today. All right, great job. And this is what I would say. 8% GDP growth? That is great news for our business. A rising tide will lift all boats. So, his business is one of those boats in the economy that will benefit from an improving economy. And let's look at the next situation. She says, "The recession is over and consumers are buying again." How could you respond to this comment and use the idiom we've learned in your response? Pause the video and make your response. Very good. So, you might have said something like this. "Yes, I know, the economy is improving. An improving economy will lift all boats." Okay, Thank you for completing the first lesson with me. I'm so happy to have you in my class, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Thank you. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 2, Sharing Good News, Lecture 3. Let's begin. Today's idiom, cash cow. Something that is generating a lot of money. Example, our company's new 10-inch tablet is the cash cow we were all dreaming about. Cash cow. So, a cash cow is a product or practice that creates a lot of money. So here we simply see a cow, and most cows that look like this produce milk, but when you milk this cow, it produces cash. This is the product or practice or service that generates a lot of money. At least this cow represents that product or service. Let's try using this in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, how has breaking into the Chinese market been? Are you making money over there? How might you respond to this question using the idiom cash cow? Give it a try. Good job. And this is what I would say. Breaking into the Chinese market has been a cash cow for us during the last 3 months. It's been great. We've been making so much money over there in China. A cash cow. So, doing business in the Chinese market, selling his service or product in China has been a cash cow. It's creating tons of revenue and cash. Let's look at one more situation. Here she says, the electric hybrid pickup truck is making millions for Roadster Motor Corporation. How might you respond to this statement? Go ahead. Good job. You probably said something about how their electric hybrid pickup truck is the cash cow for Roadster Motor Corporation. Let's move on to quiz time. So, quiz time is used to evaluate how well you're remembering the idioms we've learned up until this point. So, we've only learned 2 idioms. So, you are going to be tested on those 2 idioms. Say the idiom as you see the picture that represents it. Go ahead. Great job. Go ahead and check your answers. It's pretty easy. There were only 2 idioms, so I assume you got them all correct. And we will wrap things up. I hope that in whatever business you're doing, you can find your own cash cow that will generate lots of money for you. See you in our next lesson. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 2, Sharing Good News, Lecture 4. And let's look at today's idiom. A win-win situation. Definition: a situation which benefits both parties involved. Example: investing in solar energy is a win-win situation. The environment benefits and our company has been able to improve our public image. In our picture, we see two people. They competed in a competition and they're both winners. So, typically in a competition, there is only one winner and we think everyone else has lost or didn't win. But in a win-win situation, two parties win and have positive results. Let's see how this idiom can be used in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, "Have you been happy with investing in our startup company?" How could you respond to this question using the idiom? Good job. And this is my response. It's been a win-win situation. You have gotten the funds you needed, and we have made a profit on our investment. So, these two companies working together have both benefited. When both parties or both company benefit, it is a win-win situation. Let's try one more. What is your opinion on giving employees longer lunch breaks? How would you respond? Good job. You might have said something like this. It's a win-win situation because the employees are happier and the company benefits because employees are full and happy and willing and ready to work for a longer time more effectively. So in this situation, both the individual employee and the entire company benefit. It's a win-win situation. Okay, quiz time. Let's review the idioms that we've learned up until this point. Please identify the idiom as you see it. Go ahead and check your answers on this page. Make sure you got everything correct. All right. I believe that making these videos and this course and sharing it with you is a win-win situation. You can improve your English skills and I have fun making the videos. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lecture. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. This is Section 2, Sharing Good News, Lecture 5. Today's idiom, blow one away. To impress or amaze someone. You will be blown away by my sales report. I really have some great news. Blow away. In this picture, we see a wind turbine, and the wind turbine is blowing someone away. So, when we see this, we can remember the idiom, blow one away. Let's try using this idiom. He said, "Did you like my advertising campaign?" How would you respond to this idiom? I would say, your advertising campaign really blew me away. It was amazing. I loved it. It was the greatest advertising campaign ever. I was completely blown away. Situation 2. She says, How was your business trip to Shanghai? Did you like the city? How would you respond? Good job. So you probably said something about how Shanghai is a wonderful city and you were completely blown away by the people or the food or the infrastructure. And let's move on to quiz time. Please say the idiom as you see it. Good job. Please use the review to check your answers to make sure you got everything correct. Congratulations on completing another lecture, and I hope that you are remembering and using the idioms that we are learning. If you use them, you will completely blow away your friends and associates when they see your improved English ability. Thank you, and see you in our next lecture. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 2, Lesson 6. Today's idiom: put something on the map. Definition: to make something known or well recognized. Your brilliant advertising scheme has put our company on the map. In our picture, we see a man and he is putting a small piece of paper on the map. Now, let me explain this idiom. If something appears on a map, it is probably important. Typically, major cities, countries, special world-renowned sites will appear on a map. If something's not important, it's too small or insignificant, it probably will not appear on a map. And so, once you become important, you'll appear on a map. So this expression is used to mean that something has become, and in this case, a business has become significant and well known enough to be put on a map, and a figurative business type of map. Okay, let's try to use this expression in a couple of situations. He says, do you think the new product will sell well? How might you respond to this question? My response: I think this new product will surely put our company on the map. Good job. Let's move on. And here she says, why am I suddenly hearing so many positive reviews about your company? How might you respond? Good job. And let's move here. It says quiz time. Please identify the idiom that you see. All right, good job. If you need to, please use the review to check your answers. And congratulations on finishing your first section in the course. Up next is Section 3 with more exciting idioms. So I look forward to seeing you in our next lecture. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. And we're starting Section 3, Dominating the Competition. Dominating means to control, to be the most powerful, to be the leader. So we are going to look at idioms that deal with dominating other competition or other players in an industry or market. Our first idiom, the 800-pound gorilla. The most powerful or dominant company. That company has 75% market share. They are the 800-pound gorilla that we have to compete with. Now, in our picture, we see some gorillas. And this isn't a zoology course, but just from a technical standpoint, these aren't actually gorillas. Gorillas don't have tails. They're monkeys. But let's pretend they're gorillas. Now, in the wild, about the biggest a gorilla can get is 800 pounds. So, that's maybe 300 kilograms, about. If you are that big and you're a gorilla, you are probably the most powerful, the most dominant gorilla in your group. And you can control the other gorillas. They will listen to you because they know you're the leader. The same way in business. The 800-pound gorilla is the leader in a given industry. And the other companies or gorillas have to watch what they do, have to follow what they do, and respect them as the leader. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. Here he says, how are sales going? Are we dominating the market? How might you respond? I would say this. Our sales are growing at a rate of 15% per year. Soon we will be the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. She says, Lucky Star Laptops just bought 2 more competitors. How would you respond? Great response. Quiz time. Say the idiom as it appears. Good job. If you need to, go back and check your answers. And please take some time to review all of the idioms. And actually, you can check your answers right here. They're all here. Go ahead, check your answers, and review these 5 idioms you learned in Section 2. And thank you for joining me in this lesson. And I hope soon I will be the 800-pound gorilla on the Udemy website. So please help me so I can be the dominant and strongest, most powerful teacher there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Dominating the Competition, Lecture 8. And today's idiom is corner the market, meaning to dominate a market or industry. Example, by cutting prices, we hope to corner the market within the next few months. In our picture, we see a small market. or shop, and it has been put in a corner. And let me explain this idiom a little more. To corner something means you put it in a corner, or you trap it in a corner. And so that thing that is trapped in the corner cannot get out. You have control over it. You have control over where it goes and what it does because it's in the corner. It has a wall on one side, a wall on the other side, and you are directly facing it. In the same way, if a company corners a market, a company completely dominates the market and can control what the market does and where the market goes. There may be other companies who are trying to control the market and gain more dominance, but if you've cornered the market, you have control. You have control over the customers, you have control over the prices of products in that market, and so this is the idiom corner the market, to dominate or control a market. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, "How has their company already become the industry leader?" How would you respond? And I would say, "Aggressive advertising has allowed them to corner the market in just a few short years." So they were able to corner the market by advertising aggressively. Let's look here. She says, "How much do you think our company can grow in the next 10 years?" How would you respond to this? Try to be optimistic. Great job. Quiz time. Say the idiom as it appears. Good job. If you didn't get everything correct, please go back and check your answers. And review the 5 idioms that we learned in the last section. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Okay. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 3, Dominating the Competition, and we're on Lecture 9. Let's look at today's idiom, the lion's share. The largest portion, the majority. Example. The lion's share of new companies will fail within the first year of doing business. And in our picture, we see 3 animals. There's a lion, a fox, and a rabbit. Of course, we can see that the lion has gotten the largest amount of money. Now, just imagine that you and your friends sit down for some steaks or some kind of meat with a lion. Who do you think will end up eating most of the meat? Probably the lion will eat the majority of the meat. Probably he or she will eat almost all of the meat, as most people would get scared and run away. So, from this picture and this example, we can remember that the lion's share or the lion's portion is the largest amount. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. So in our first situation, he says, Where did all of this year's profits go? They just disappeared. Where are they? How would you respond to this question? And here is my response. A lion's share of this year's profits have gone into our CEO's retirement fund. Oh, so all those profits that could have been and should have been shared evenly among all the employees and workers and managers and executives, the lion's share went into the CEO's retirement fund. Okay, in this situation, she says, how should we spend the investment funds we just received? How would you respond to this question? Good job. Quiz time. Say the idiom as it appears. Great job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. Also, take some time to review the 5 idioms we learned in our last section. Okay. Great job today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Thank you. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Section 3, Dominating the Competition, Lecture 10. Go through the roof. To suddenly increase. Example, printing costs have gone through the roof. We need to find some alternative. And let's look at the picture. In the picture, we see a rocket and it has gone through the roof. It is moving so fast and with so much force that it goes right through the roof. We can use this idiom in business when a price or the value of something suddenly increases. Let's try using this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, how is the company's stock this month? How might you respond using the idiom we learned today? Good job. And I would say, our company's stock has gone through the roof. It is already up 10% this week. Wow, it's doing really well. In this situation, she says, why haven't you taken any business trips this year? How might you respond to this by using the idiom? All right, good job. You might have said something like this. Well, plane tickets or the price of plane tickets have gone through the roof in the last few months. Okay, and let's take our quiz. Say the idiom as it appears. All right, please go back and check your answers if you need to. and take some time to review the idioms from our last section. Also, if you have friends, family, or acquaintances who might be interested in this course, please share it with them, as I would like to see enrollment numbers for this course go through the roof. Thank you and goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Dominating the Competition, Lecture 11. Let's look at this idiom, meet in the middle. To reach an agreement through compromise. I would like to keep prices where they are. You would like to see a 10% increase. Let's meet in the middle at 5%. In our picture, we can see two businessmen. They are moving toward each other. And if we look at the ruler, we can see that they are meeting exactly in the middle. So, this expression means that two people have differing ideas, differing opinions, but they're willing to compromise. You give some, I give some. We can reach an agreement. We'll reach an agreement in the middle. So, I'll meet you in the middle. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, our marketing team needs a $20,000 budget for this project. How would you respond to this demand? And here is my response. I was thinking $10,000 would be enough. I'll meet you in the middle at $15,000. Okay? All right. And let's try another situation. She says, I think we need to hire at least 20 new employees next month to keep up with increasing sales. Can we do that? How would you respond to this question? All right, good response. Let's do our quiz. Please say the idiom as it appears. All right, great job. Please check your answers if you need to, and take some time to review the idioms we studied in Section 2. Thank you for joining me, and good luck with the test at the end of this section. See you in our next section. Bye-bye. Congratulations on making it this far in the course. We are on Section 4, Bad News Around the Office, and today we will be covering Lecture 12. Today's idiom, take a haircut. To suffer a loss financially, to lose money. Manufacturing costs are twice what we expected. I am afraid we will have to take a haircut on this one. This idiom is fairly simple. To take a haircut means you lose money. And in this picture, we simply see someone who is taking a haircut or having a haircut. or getting a haircut. So typically, when we actually literally have our hair cut, we say, I got a haircut. But in this case, when we talk about the idiom and the figurative meaning in a business sense, we say, we will take a haircut, or we took a haircut. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, I heard our new product is not doing well. Oh no, how will you respond to this bad news? And I say, yes, our new product is doing poorly in the market. I'm afraid we will have to take a haircut. It's too bad. Very sad. And let's try another one. She says, our market share has dropped by 10% in the last 3 months. Wow, that is way too much. And how will you respond to her comment? Very good. Let's look at this next page, and it's quiz time. So, please say the idioms as you see them appear. All right, great job on that, and please check your answers to make sure that you got everything correct. Also, take some time to review the 5 idioms we learned in section 3. Thank you for joining me in this lecture, and I'll see you in our next lecture. Goodbye. Welcome to Section 4, Lecture 13. Let's look at today's idiom. The pink slip. Ooh, the pink slip. The dreaded, scary pink slip. Notice that one is being fired. Example. With the economy being as bad as it is, there will be more pink slips going out this Friday. In this case, a slip is a small piece of paper. And of course, it's a pink slip. It simply means notice that someone is being fired. So, I don't think people who are fired actually get a notice on a pink piece of paper that they're being fired. But at some point, somewhere, probably that kind of notice was given. It was written on a pink piece of paper, and it meant that you were being fired. I don't know if that happens anymore, but it is an idiom that has found its way into the English language, and people use it commonly and understand it. So, the pink slip, a piece of paper that means you're being fired. And we typically say, get the pink slip, which means someone is being fired. Someone is going to get the pink slip, or I got the pink slip. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, he now has 7 negative evaluations in the last year? And how would you respond? I would simply say, he's going to get the pink slip. Yeah, definitely he will be fired after 7 negative evaluations. In this situation, she says, it's the weekend! Woohoo! Why do you look so depressed? How will you respond to her inquiry? All right, great job. Let's move on to the quiz time. Identify the idiom as it appears. All right, great job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. And please review the 5 idioms that we learned in Section 3. Thank you for joining me in another lesson, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Bad news around the office. Lecture 14. And let's look at today's idiom. On a shoestring budget. Having very little money. We will not be able to hire anyone this month because we are operating on a shoestring budget. In our picture, we see someone giving a budget report, and they are standing on a shoestring. Now, how much does a shoestring cost? Well, you probably don't know because you probably just buy the shoe without the shoestring. But I would guess a shoestring doesn't cost more than $1. Even an expensive shoestring probably only costs about $1. Now, imagine trying to run a company on $1. If that was your budget, the amount of money it costs to run, or it costs to buy a shoestring, if that was your budget for running a company, what would life be like? It would be hard. You wouldn't have money. You couldn't buy the things you need. You couldn't pay the people you needed to pay. And in that situation, you would say, we are on a shoestring budget. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. Here he says, how did you start your company with so little money? You are amazing. How would you respond to this question? And I say, we started this company 5 years ago on a shoestring budget, but now we are the industry leader. Yes! Let's look at this situation. She says, profits are way down this month. I don't know what to do. How would you respond using the idiom? You probably said something like this. We will probably have to operate on a shoestring budget until the economy gets better. Quiz time! Say each idiom as it appears, and we'll go fast today. All right, go back and check your answers if you need to. Also, review the 5 idioms that we learned in the last section. I hope that this course is helping you to improve your English. I also hope that this course didn't cost you too much money, because if it did, you might have to operate on a shoestring budget. Thank you for joining me today, and see you in our next lesson. Welcome to Lesson 15 of English idioms for business success. Today's idiom, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Meaning, to have no desirable options. Manufacturing overseas will damage our image, but we will lose money manufacturing at home. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place. We have no desirable options. Let's go ahead and look at the picture. So, in the picture, we see a little blue man. The little blue man wants to go somewhere. He wants to maybe go to the right, maybe he wants to go to the left. But he has nowhere to go. He has a rock on one side and a brick wall or a hard place on the other. Nowhere to go. Whether he goes left or whether he goes right, he will run into something hard and will probably get injured. So, this idiom is used to describe a situation in which we have no good choices, no good options. No matter what we do, there's going to be some negative result. Let's try to use this in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, I know your boss is really unfair. Are you going to quit your job? What could you say? And my response is, if I quit, I receive no salary. If I keep working, I will be harassed by my boss. I am stuck between a rock and a hard place. So, as you can see, he has no good options. If he stays, he gets harassed by the boss who doesn't like him. If he leaves, he has no money, no way to survive or support himself. He is stuck between a rock and a hard place. She says, have you decided what you will do with your lazy employee? How would you respond using the idiom? Good job. That's exactly what I would do with a lazy employee too. Quiz time. Say the idiom as it appears. Check your answers if you need to. And please go back and review the 5 idioms that you learned in Section 3. Make sure you know them perfectly. All right. Thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Lecture 16 of English Idioms for Business Success. Let's look at today's idiom. Go belly up. To fail financially, to go bankrupt. Example. The company went belly up after the CEO was put in jail for corruption. In our picture, we see a fish. The fish has gone belly up, meaning the fish has turned over and its belly is up out of the water. This is what fish do when they die. After they die, their bodies produce gases which make them float, and most of the gas is concentrated in their belly, so their belly comes up out of the water. When we see a fish like this, we know the fish must be dead. So, This is an expression used to describe a company which is financially dead or bankrupt. Let's use the idiom. In this situation, he says, what will happen if our earnings continue to decline? Respond to this inquiry. And I might say, if our earnings continue to decline, we could go belly up. Oh no. Let's try to use this idiom one more time. She says, why aren't you working anymore? And what might you say? Very good job. And let's go into our quiz time. Please say the idioms as they appear. Good job. Be sure to check your answers and take some time to review the 5 idioms we learned in Section 3. Thank you once again for joining me. It was great studying with you, and I'll see you in our next lecture. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Time to negotiate. Lecture 17. Play hardball. Example. To deal with someone in an aggressive manner. Let's start aggressively recruiting their top employees. Sometimes you have to play hardball just to survive. Okay, let's look at the picture. Baseball, typical baseball, is played with a hard ball. Sometimes younger people or other leagues might play with a soft ball. Now, of course, a hard ball is more dangerous than a softball. People can get hurt when the ball is thrown or hit. It's more dangerous and it's a little bit of a riskier sport. The same goes for this expression in business. When you play hardball, somebody could get hurt and it's a little bit risky. So it means you are dealing with someone in an aggressive manner. Okay, let's go ahead and try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, is he willing to negotiate with you? And how would you respond to that question? I might say, he is refusing to negotiate with me. It is time to play hardball with him. So it's time to get serious. It's time to be aggressive. He's refusing to do what I want him to do. So I'm going to take some measure that is going to get his attention and maybe scare him a little bit. Let's look at another situation. She says, I have asked my boss 3 times for a transfer to the new office building. She keeps ignoring me. What should I do? How might you respond to this question? Yes. So, in this situation, she needs to play hardball with the boss. So, an example of playing hardball would be something like threatening the boss. You might say, you know, boss, I know what you did. I know your big secret about what you did at last year's Christmas party after everybody was gone and it was just you and Bob. I'm going to tell that secret to everybody. Then she is playing hardball, and then and only then does she have the boss's attention. Okay, let's go ahead and look at quiz time. Please say the idiom as it appears. Go back and check your answers if you need to, and be sure that you know the meanings of these 5 idioms from our last section. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye. Let's continue our exploration of idioms dealing with the subject time to negotiate. Let's look at Lecture 18's idiom. See eye to eye. To agree. To have the same perspective or opinion. Example. The two of you will never see eye to eye. You should just agree to disagree. And in this example, we have another common expression. This is a fixed expression, agree to disagree. So, initially, when you hear this, it sounds like it's contradicting itself. But if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Sometimes people come with entirely different opinions, entirely different backgrounds, and no matter how long they try to compromise or negotiate or understand each other, there are some issues or views that they will never see eye to eye on. They will never agree on. So they simply have to say, we'll just agree to disagree, and let's not talk about that. We can be friends and talk about other things. Okay, let's look at the picture. So in the picture, you see 2 people. They are looking at each other in the eye. They're at eye level with each other, and they say, I agree, I agree. Seeing eye to eye, of course, means that you agree on a certain topic or issue. Let's try to use this idiom in this situation. He says, how were the negotiations? How might you respond by using the idiom? And I would say this. The negotiations ended so quickly, we saw eye to eye on almost all of the important issues. Let's look at one more situation. She says, do you agree with the boss's new dress code? How might you respond to this question? And if you took my other course, 50 Essential English Idioms, you will know more about the boss's dress code. But that's for another time, a different course. Regardless, how would you respond to this question? And you might say something like, I just don't see eye to eye with the boss on anything. I completely disagree with the new dress policy. Quiz time. Say the idiom as it appears. Let's get started. Great job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. Also, review the idioms we learned in the last section, and thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome to Lecture 9 of English Idioms for Business Success. Let's look at today's idiom. Draw a line in the sand. To state a final condition or demand which one will never compromise on. Example: no more than a 5% discount. I am drawing a line in the sand here. And let's look at the picture. So in the picture, we see that someone has drawn a line in the sand, and it says, do not cross this line. Now, my guess is that this idiom came from war. Possibly two countries had a conflict about a border, and maybe one country told the other country, I'm drawing a line here. If your soldiers cross this line, there will be all-out war. So, this expression is used in negotiations between companies, between individuals. One person or company will say, do this, and I'm not negotiating. Or, do this, and you can forget about everything. So, it's a final condition that you will not compromise on. Let's try to use the idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, he keeps asking for more discounts. What should I do? How might you respond to this? And I would say, you need to be firm with them. Draw a line in the sand and then don't change your mind. Good idea. And let's look here. She says, they keep asking for more time to complete the purchase. I am going crazy. How would you respond to this? Please give her some advice. Great job. And this says quiz time. So as you see the idiom, please say it. And we'll go fast today. All right, great job on that. Please check your answers if you need to. And if you need to, go back and take the quiz again. And remember to review the idioms we learned in our last section. Congratulations, you've completed another lecture, and I am excited to see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Time to negotiate. Lecture 20. Today's idiom is grease someone's palms, meaning to give money or gifts to someone in order to do something dishonest. I think they are willing to work with us. We just need to grease some palms. Shh, don't tell anybody. It's our secret. Okay, and let's look at the picture. Here we see two people. They're shaking hands. They are making a business deal, and it looks like there is grease dripping from their hands. Now, grease is something that makes things move smoothly. It's a lubricant. And in the same way, a bribe can be a lubricant for a business deal. Giving someone money or greasing someone's hand to get something done in business can make business go much smoother. I'm not suggesting you do that, but that is reality. So, just as grease or oil can make car parts or bike parts work smoothly, a little extra money or a few gifts on the side can make a business deal go much more smoothly too. So, a simple way to say grease someone's palms is to, you could also say, give a bribe or bribe someone. But this is an idiom, and when we hear this idiom, we think of oil or grease being exchanged when people shake hands. Okay, let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. All right, in the first situation, he says, how can we get the government contract? How would you respond to this question? I would probably say this. I think we will have to grease some people's palms in order to get the government contract. Yes. Okay, and one more situation. She says, how did you become a supervising manager so quickly? How might you respond to this question? Maybe you need to tell her the truth. Tell her your dirty little secret. Very good. So, I might say something like this in response to her question. If I'm being honest, I would say something like this. I just greased a few palms, and that's how I've gotten in my position. That's how I've reached the top of my profession. Grease a few palms. Okay, let's go to quiz time. Please identify the idiom as it appears. Good job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. Also, take some time to review the idioms we learned in our last section. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. I'll see you in our next lesson. Thank you. Goodbye. Welcome to Lecture 21, the final lecture in Section 5, Time to Negotiate. Let's look at today's idiom. Put your cards on the table. Meaning, to reveal your true intentions. Example, let me just put all my cards on the table. I am planning to leave the company if I do not get a pay raise this year. So, here we see a picture of a hand that is putting their cards on the table. So, this idiom comes from the game of poker. Usually during a poker game, people hide their cards. But at a certain point, they put their cards on the table and they show what they've been hiding. In the same way, when we are negotiating or when we are dealing with others and we reveal what we have, our true intentions, we can say we are putting our cards on the table for everyone to see. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. So, he says, do you think he is being honest with you? How would you respond to this inquiry? I would say this. No, I don't feel he is being honest with me. I wish he would just put all his cards on the table. And in this situation, she says, okay, I have something to tell you. I am going to be completely honest. How could you respond to this statement using the idiom that we learned today? And I would probably say something like this. All right, go ahead. I love honesty. Please put all your cards on the table. Quiz time. Identify the idiom as it appears. We'll go fast. Great job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. And please take some time to review the 5 idioms we learned in our last section. Thank you once again, and congratulations on completing another section in this course. I hope that you are enjoying the course and that you are finding it beneficial. Goodbye. Never mind. Welcome to Section 6 of English Idioms for Business Success. Let's begin Lecture 22. Today's idiom, step up to the plate. To take action to solve a problem. Who wants to tell the boss the bad news? Somebody needs to step up to the plate and just do it. Step up to the plate. So in this picture, we see a man. He is stepping up to a plate that we use to eat. Now, originally, this idiom comes from the plate we use when we play baseball. When someone steps up to home plate, they have a bat, they're going to hit the ball. So in that instance, the person who is stepping up to the plate with the bat to hit the ball, everyone is focused on them. How the game is going to turn out depends on that person. So this idiom comes from that situation. And when we say we're going to step up to the plate, it means that we personally are going to solve a problem. Okay? The focus will be on us. We're taking responsibility for something. We're taking control of the situation. Just as a baseball player who steps up to the plate has control of the situation and will determine the outcome of that part of the game. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, what are the people in your office like? Are they proactive? Proactive meaning, are they active? Are they willing to take on tasks without being asked to? How might you respond to this question? Give it a try. And here is my response. I say, everyone in my office is so passive. Nobody wants to step up to the plate and take on any responsibility. Yes, so stepping up to the plate means you take on responsibility. You aren't passive. Okay, you can try the next one on your own. So she says, I hope that somebody else will volunteer to meet with the visiting manager this weekend. So she is trying to avoid responsibility. How would you respond to her statement? Give it a try. All right, great job. And let's move on to the quiz time. Please say the idiom as you see the picture that represents it. Okay, great job. If you need to, go back and check your answers. Review. Please review the idioms that we learned in the last section. Thank you once again for joining me in this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you, and goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success, Lecture 23. Let's look at today's idiom. Take something lying down. Definition. To tolerate mistreatment without fighting back. Example. Don't take his insults lying down. You need to confront him about his rude behavior. Take something lying down. So, in our picture, we see someone who is lying down on a sofa. While he is lying down, someone else has come and is kicking him in the face. In this situation, would you take this rude behavior lying down? Would you simply lie down on the sofa and let yourself be kicked in the face? Probably not. But what this idiom means is that someone is treating you unfairly or unkindly, and you are doing nothing. You are just passively lying down and not fighting back. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first conversation, he says, "The boss fired me without any explanation." Obviously, if someone fires you without any explanation, this is mistreatment. What would you do in this situation, and how would you respond to his comment? Give it a try. And here is my response. Are you going to take that lying down? All right, good job. And let's go to our next situation. She says, "My coworker was using my computer without permission again today." In this situation again, we have an example of mistreatment. Someone is using her computer without her permission. Should she take this lying down? Should she simply ignore the problem and pretend like it's not happening? How would you respond to this? Great job. Let's go to quiz time. Please identify the idiom as you see it. All right, great job. If you feel like there are some idioms that you saw that you didn't know, please go back and check your answers. Also, please take some time to review the idioms on this page that we studied in our last section. Thank you once again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. Thank you. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Today we are on Lecture 24. Let's look at the idiom. Take the bull by the horns. Definition: to take control of a situation, to take action to solve a problem. Example: nobody in my department wants to deal with this issue. I am going to have to take the bull by the horns and deal with it. This idiom is very similar in meaning to the idiom step up to the plate that we learned 2 lessons ago. Let's look at the picture. In this picture, we see a woman, and she has taken a bull by its horns. She is literally holding the bull's horns and trying to control him. Now, this idiom is a lot like the picture, because sometimes in business or life, we have a situation that we have to take control of. It might be dangerous, it might be undesirable, but we alone have to step up to the plate and do it. When we do this, we say we take the bull by the horns. Notice that she is doing this alone and that it is dangerous. Certainly nobody wants to do this, but she has decided to do it. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, the employees in our Boston office continue to leave work early. Oh no, this is a big problem that probably nobody wants to deal with. How would you respond to this? And here is my response. Somebody needs to take the bull by the horns to deal with that problem. In this situation, we can also use the idiom, somebody needs to step up to the plate and deal with that problem. The 2 idioms are almost completely similar. Let's move on to the next situation. Here she says, why has no one tried to improve our customer service ratings? How could you respond to this question by using the idiom we've learned today? Give it a try. All right, excellent. Quiz time! Yes, my favorite time. And go ahead, identify the idiom as you see it. Great job. Please check your answers to make sure that they are correct. And here is a review. Please review the 5 idioms that we learned in the last section. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome to Section 6, Taking Charge, Lecture 25. Let's look at today's idiom. Get the ball rolling. Definition: to start something. Example: when are you going to start advertising online? Let's get the ball rolling. Okay, And in our picture, we see someone, he is attempting to kick the ball. And of course, if he kicks the ball will begin to roll. He will be getting the ball rolling. So, this idiom, to get the ball rolling, means to get something started. So typically, if a ball is on a hill and you push it a little, it will start rolling. You have started something that probably will continue for quite a while. So this is where the idiom comes from. It indicates that you are pushing or starting something just as you would push a ball and it would start rolling and continue to roll. All right, let's try to use this idiom. In our first situation, he says, "The meeting was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. Let's get the ball rolling." How might you respond to this? Of course, he has already used the idiom, but you could use it in your response. Very good. Yes, you could simply say, "Let's get the ball rolling," or "Yes, I want to get the ball rolling too." Okay, let's try to use the idiom in another situation. This one will be a little more difficult. So, she says, "Let's wait another 10 minutes before we start your presentation." How might you respond to this? Good job. Yes, you might say something like this. "I think everyone is here. Why don't we just get the ball rolling?" Yes, which means, of course, let's get started. Quiz time! Yes! Please identify the idiom as you see it in the picture. All right, if you need to, please go back and check your answers. And take some time to review the idioms that you learned in the last section. All right, thank you once again for joining me in another exciting lecture. And I look forward to our next lecture where we can get the ball rolling again and start learning. Thank you. Bye. Welcome to our last lecture in section 6. Let's look at today's idiom. Go down swinging. Definition: to try one's best, even though one will likely fall. Example: if we can land this big contract, we can avoid bankruptcy. If nothing else, let's go down swinging. Okay. This, like the idiom that we studied earlier in this section, step up to the plate, is an idiom that originates from the game of baseball. Go down swinging. Swinging, of course, means to use the bat to swing at the ball. Now, when someone strikes out in baseball, they can strike out in two ways. They can simply watch the ball go by and get their third strike, or they can attempt to swing at the ball, and though they may strike out and have to sit down, at least they are trying. So, in most cases, I think people would admire someone who swung at the ball and struck out, as opposed to someone who simply just watched the ball go by and didn't attempt to hit it. So this idiom means that we may lose, we may not be successful, but let's at least try our best. So we say, go down swinging. Go down means fail in this situation, and of course, swinging means trying. So even though we try, or even though we fail, even though we fail, let's at least try our best. This is what the idiom means. Let's try to use it in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, I don't think she likes our product. Are you going to do the sales pitch anyway? So, it seems that whoever he is trying to sell a product to doesn't like the product. So it could be embarrassing. It could be a waste of time and energy to go and give the sales pitch and try to convince her to buy the product. How would you respond to this question? And my response. She is probably not interested in our product, but I will try my best. I at least want to go down swinging. Okay, let's try one more. In this situation, she says, it is clear that the boss does not like your marketing proposal. So why did you schedule another meeting with her to talk about it again? Once again, it seems that he is sure to fail, that he is simply wasting his time. Perhaps he should just give up. How would you respond to her question? Very good response. Let's go ahead and test how well you remember the idioms we've been learning. Say the idiom as you see it. Great job! All right. If you need to, check your answers. And please review the idioms that we learned in our last section. All right. It was great to see you again, okay? And I look forward to seeing you in our next lecture. Goodbye. Welcome to Section 7 of English Idioms for Business Success. Let's start our section with the first idiom. And in this section, you will be learning idioms that can describe situations where people are coming up with new ideas for business. Let's look at the first one, a pipe dream. Something that will never happen, something unrealistic. When I was younger, I thought one day I would be rich and famous, but now I realize that was just a pipe dream. And this is true. When I was younger, I thought I would be rich and famous and impress the world, but look at me now. I'm just a Udemy teacher with only a few students. That idea that I would be rich and famous one day was just a pipe dream. And in our picture, we see a woman. She's smoking a pipe. Now, typically people who sit around and smoke pipes all day and think usually don't achieve a lot. They may believe that they'll be rich, but you don't earn a lot of money or you don't get famous by just sitting around and smoking a pipe. Although the pipe may influence you, or the chemicals you're smoking in the pipe may influence you to think of big, unrealistic ideas, which we can call pipe dreams. Let's try to use this expression. He says, what does he want to do with his invention? How would you respond? And I say, he thinks that he can turn his invention into a Fortune 500 company. Oh, of course that is a pipe dream. Yes, it will never happen. It's a ridiculous idea. And let's look here. She says, one day I will replace you as the CEO. How would you respond to this statement or challenge? Great job. And let's go and start our quiz time. So please say the idiom as you see it. Great job. That was fantastic. If you need to, go back and check your answer. And let's look here. Please review the 5 idioms that we learned in our last section. Thank you for joining me in another exciting lecture, and I'll see you in our next lesson. This is Lecture 28 of English Idioms for Business Success. Today's idiom, think outside the box. Now, the last idiom we studied was pipe dream. That idiom has a very negative connotation, meaning unrealistic, undoable. This idiom, on the other hand, has a very positive connotation. Let's look at the definition. To think in a new, creative way. Example. Competing in today's marketplace requires thinking outside the box. And in our picture, we simply see a man. He is thinking and he is outside the box. Okay? The box represents something very common, something very ordinary, the typical boundaries and parameters people use to think. But if we want to be creative or inventive, we need to think outside the box. We need to get rid of the limitations and rules that confine most people and think independently. Let's try to use this idiom. In our first situation, he says, how will I solve the problem of declining customer interest? How might you respond to this question? And I say, to solve this complex problem, we will have to think outside the box, meaning we will have to think creatively in a new way that we haven't used before. Because obviously, the old way of thinking wasn't working. We've got to come up with something new. And let's look at the next one. She says, what kind of people are you hoping to hire? How might you respond to this question? Good job. And you probably said something to the effect, we want to hire people who can think outside the box. Quiz time! Say the idioms as you see them. Okay, if you need to, go back and check your answer. And let's look here. Here are the 5 idioms we learned in the last section. Please make sure that you know them before moving on. And we've come to the end of our lesson. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Thank you. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. We are on lecture 29. Let's look at today's idiom. That it will never fly. It will never be accepted. It will never be successful. Example: you want to show them you are an independent thinker by wearing pajamas to your job interview? That will never fly. No, sorry, bad idea. Let's look at our picture. In our picture, we see an ostrich. Now, some people might think that an ostrich, because it's a bird and it has wings, it could fly, right? Maybe that's possible. At least some people might think that. But in reality, that bird will never fly. In the same way, some people might think a crazy idea like wearing pajamas to a job interview might be acceptable and might be successful, but in reality, no. It will never be successful, it will never be accepted, and we say, that will never fly. Let's use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, we could sell luxury cars in third world countries. Is this a good idea? What do you think? Try to respond. And this is my response. You want to sell luxury cars in third world countries? That will never fly. Bad idea. Okay, let's try the next one. She says, I didn't have time to print the handouts for our meeting, so I just wrote them down on paper plates. Would your boss accept notes written down on paper plates as handouts for a meeting? How would you reply to her? Great job, and let's move on to the quiz time. All right, so please identify the idioms that you see, and we'll go fast today. All right, go back and check your answers if you need to. And please take some time to review the idioms that we learned in our last section. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. We are on Lecture 30, and today's idiom is ahead of the curve. To have creative ideas, to anticipate trends beforehand. Example: Burst Electronics showed that they are ahead of the curve when they started selling hydrogen cell batteries to power homes. And let's look here. In our picture, we can see 2 cars. One car is ahead of the curve. One car is behind the curve. So we can think of these 2 cars as 2 businesses. One is out in front. It's ahead of the other. It's doing things and seeing things and experiencing things before the other car or other company is. So, if you are ahead of the curve or your company is ahead of the curve, that means that you are an industry leader and you are leading the other companies. So you are starting trends, you are doing the new things to improve your company before other companies are. Let's try and use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, "Why does Bob just stare at the wall all day? What is going on inside his head? I don't get it." Try to respond. And this is my response. Actually, he is coming up with new brilliant marketing ideas. He is so far ahead of the curve. So, in this situation, the coworker assumes that Bob is simply just staring at the wall and not doing anything. In reality, he is so far ahead of everyone else. He is coming up with new ideas to help improve the company, to take the company places that the company has never been, and to take it places that no other company has ever been. In this situation, we would say that Bob is ahead of the curve. So a person can be ahead of the curve, or a company could be ahead of the curve too. Let's try another one. She says, "Is your company really going to fly tourists to the moon?" How would you respond? Good job. And you probably said something to the effect that flying tourists to the moon is so far ahead of the curve, or your company is so far ahead of the curve that it will fly tourists to the moon, indicating that this is something that will become popular in the next few years. Quiz time. So identify the idiom as you see it. Okay, I hope I didn't go too fast for you, but it's always nice to have a challenge. Okay, let's go and look at the 5 idioms that we learned in our last section. Please review them. So, I hope that this course is helping you. I hope that through learning these idioms, you can be ahead of the curve, ahead of your competitors, and improve your English. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. This is Lecture 31 of English Idioms for Business Success. Let's look at today's idiom. Can't have one's cake and eat it too. Definition. One cannot have everything one wants. Example. Do you really think you can get free shipping and have your shipment delivered tomorrow? You can't have your cake and eat it too. All right, let's look at this picture. And this will help explain the idiom. In this picture, we see a woman. She has just finished her cake. She's had her cake. But what is she thinking about? She's thinking about another cake. Is this possible? Is this reality? Once we've eaten something, once we've enjoyed something, we can't have it back. We can remember it, but we can't have an endless supply of cakes. meaning we can't have everything in life. And this idiom, we might say, you can't have your cake and eat it too, expresses that idea, that you can't have everything in life. There's always some limit to what you can have. So don't expect too much. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, "Can I have 3 more weeks of paid vacation and a pay raise?" If you're his boss, how would you respond to this request? And I would say, "You want 3 more weeks of paid vacation and a pay raise? Huh? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Get out of my office." That's what I would do. How about you? Okay, let's go to the next one. And she says, "I want a man who earns lots of money and will cook 3 meals a day for me." Is this realistic? Does such a man exist? Could a man love her that much that he will go out and work every day and prepare 3 meals for her each day? Does she deserve that? How would you respond? All right, good job. Let's go here. It's quiz time. Please identify the idiom as you see it. And we're going slow today. Slow. Great job with the quiz. Please go back and check your answers if you need to. Also, review the idioms from our last section. Congratulations, you've finished another section in our course, and continue to study hard. I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to English Idioms for Business Success. Section 8, Getting Hired and Starting a New Job. Let's look at our first idiom for this section. It says, bring to the table. Definition, to have skills or attributes which are beneficial. Example, she is a great communicator, has excellent computer skills, and is a dedicated worker. She brings so much to the table. In our picture, we can see a man. He's bringing some food to the table, and on the plate are written different attributes which might be desirable for an employee to have. So this expression means how you will contribute to a cause or to a company. Let's practice using this expression. So, your business associate says to you, "As a potential business partner, I could help you in many ways." How might you respond to this comment? Go ahead and try to respond and use the idiom. And this is my example. Really? What would you bring to the table? Let's try this one. Your business partner or associate says to you, "If we hire you, how would you contribute to our company?" And how would you respond? Give it a try. All right, Great job. Let's move on. Quiz time. Let's review some of the idioms we learned in the past. Go ahead. Okay, how did you do? If you need to, go back to other lessons and check your answers. Here is a review of some of the idioms we learned in the last section. So, please make sure that you know these idioms. Pause the video if you need to. Thank you once again for joining me in another exciting lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye. Thank you. Welcome to Lecture 33, and let's look at our first idiom. Jump through hoops. Definition: to complete the necessary mundane requirements. So, often, before you start a new job, you have to complete certain requirements which may not be fun, such as getting a medical examination or going through a number of interviews. This process is called jumping through hoops. Here's an example. Now that you have jumped through all the necessary hoops, you will be promoted! Yeah! Jump through hoops. In our picture, we can see someone jumping through the hoops. Jumping through hoops is not fun, it's not entertaining, but it's necessary. It's required. Let's practice using these idioms in a couple of situations. First one, you need to get a dental exam before we can hire you. How would you respond to this statement? And here is my response. Do I really have to get a dental examination? Wow, there are so many hoops to jump through. And in this situation, someone asks you, what do I need to do now that I have the job offer? How would you respond using the idiom? All right, great job. Let's move on to the quiz portion of our lesson. Please say the idioms as you see them. Great job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. These are the 5 idioms that we learned in the last section. Please review them. Make sure you know them. If you need to go back and review them, please do so. Thank you for joining me in this exciting lesson, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Thank you, and goodbye. Welcome to Lecture 34. Today's idiom is learning curve. Definition: the rate at which one must learn something. Example: you have so much prior experience, so there won't be much of a learning curve for you. Let's look at this picture. In the picture, we see someone learning something. Next to him is a curve. A learning curve, or a steep learning curve, implies that when we start something new, such as a job, We have to learn a lot of information or skills in a very short period of time. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. Will becoming a sales representative be hard? How would you respond to this? Very good. I might say, there will be a steep learning curve the first 6 months, but after that, things will get a lot easier. In this situation, your coworker says, how is your new job as a human resources manager? How might you respond to this question? All right, very good. Let's go to the quiz. Try to remember the idioms that are shown in the pictures. Great job. How did you do? If you need to, go back and check your answers. Here are the idioms that we learned in our last section. Please review these and make sure you know them. Thank you for joining me in another exciting lecture, and I hope to see you in our next class. Thank you. Welcome to Lecture 35. Let's look at today's idiom. So, this says a diamond in the rough. Definition: someone or something that has a lot of potential but may not appear to be that good at first. Example: you could be a diamond in the rough. We never expected to find our next Chief Financial Officer frying French fries at McDonald's. A diamond in the rough. So here we can see a diamond in a very rough and dirty area. So typically a diamond in the rough refers to a person that maybe you find for your business or company, and you didn't expect to find that kind of qualified person in such a rough area. So let's try to use this idiom. In our first situation, the coworker says, how did you find and hire Nancy? How might you respond? Your response should include something about how Nancy was found in an area or in a way that was unexpected and that usually would not allow for you to find someone that qualified. What might you say? All right, great job. And let's look at my response. She was a diamond in the rough. She had little education and came from a rural area, but she is a business genius. Okay, and here is one more situation. She says, why is your company holding a job fair in such a small, poverty-stricken town? How might you respond to this question? Go ahead, give your response. All right, great job. Excellent. And let's move on to the quiz portion of our lesson. Please say the idiom as you see the pictures. Good job. If you were not able to say the idioms as you saw them, please go back and review. And here are the idioms from our last section. Make sure that you know these. All right. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lecture. Thank you. Goodbye. Welcome to Lecture 36. Let's look at the idiom. Get one's foot in the door. Definition. To have an opportunity to do something that eventually could lead to something much bigger. Example. I really want to get into marketing. Do you know how I could get my foot in the door? And here is the picture to help us remember the idiom. In the picture, we see someone who's sticking their foot in the door. Now, just as getting our foot literally in a door could mean that eventually we could go inside the room, we might end up living in that room. There are so many things we could do in that room. So too, this idiom means that by getting our foot in the door, whether it be a company or an industry, that opens up so many more opportunities and things we could do that eventually could make a huge difference. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, I heard you were selected for the internship. How might you respond to this statement? Good job. And let's look at my response. I say, this is my chance to get my foot in the door. Hopefully, later I will be hired as a full-time employee. And here is the second situation. She says, yes, I finally got an interview with Bluesoft Industries. I have been waiting so long for this opportunity. How would you respond to this statement? Very good. Great job. Quiz time. Please say the idioms as you see the picture. Great. If you're not absolutely sure that you said all the idioms correctly, go back and check your answers. Here are the idioms from our last section. Please review them. Make sure that you know them. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you in our next class. Welcome to Section 9, talking about employees, Lecture 37. Our first idiom, white collar. Definition, referring to people who work in an office. Example, white-collar jobs are scarce in this manufacturing town. In this picture, we clearly see these three people are wearing shirts with white collars. Typically, people who work in an office, not always, but sometimes wear a shirt with a white collar. Thus, the phrase white collar. Let's try to use this expression in a couple of situations. He says, how can I get a job working in an office? How might you respond to this question using the idiom? Go ahead and try. Great job. And this is how I would respond. If you want to secure a white-collar job, you need to get a university degree. Typically, white-collar jobs require a university degree. Let's try using the idiom one more time. In this situation, she says, "Do you know what kind of work she is looking for?" How might you respond to this inquiry? Great job. Let's move forward to our quiz and see how many of the idioms you remember. Please say the idiom as you see the picture. Great job! If you feel that you got some wrong, go back and check your answers. Also, please review the 5 idioms that we learned in the last section. Thank you for joining me in another exciting lesson, and I'll see you again in our next lesson. Thank you. Goodbye. Hello, it's great to see you again. Welcome to Lecture 38. Let's look at the idiom for today. Last time we learned white collar. Another common idiom that we use to describe workers is blue collar. Let's look at the definition. Referring to working class people who do manual labor. So, white-collar workers typically work in an office. Blue-collar workers typically do manual labor, which could be done in a factory or in some other facility. Example: the new factories that are being built should provide lots of blue-collar jobs. Let's look at our picture. So, simply, here we see a worker. He is obviously a manual worker, and he has a blue collar. Let's go ahead and try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In this first situation, he says, "What kind of work would you like to do?" How would you respond to this question and use the idiom in your response? Sounds good, and here is my response. I prefer blue-collar work over being stuck in an office all day. So, obviously, some people prefer a white-collar job where they can work in an office, and some people may prefer to use their hands or some other skills and work in a factory or another facility like that. Okay. And here is our second situation. She asks, what does he plan to do after high school? How might you respond to this question? All right, great job. Let's go ahead and take our quiz. Please identify the idiom represented by each picture. Okay, how did you do? If you need to, go back and check your answers. And once again, here are the idioms that we learned in our last section. Please review them and make sure you know them. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to Lecture 39, and let's get started. The idiom for today is eager beaver. A definition: someone who is very enthusiastic or ambitious. Example: what an eager beaver, working overtime for the 3rd time this week. And let's look at this picture. So here we see a race. A race is taking place, and this animal, the beaver, is winning. So obviously, this beaver has run faster and harder than any other competitor. In the same way, an eager beaver in the office works harder and perhaps faster than any other worker. So an eager beaver is someone who is ambitious, who volunteers to do work they don't have to, and is continually striving to improve and impress others. Let's try to use this expression in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, "What kind of an employee is Audrey?" How might you respond to this question? And this is my response. She volunteers for everything. She is such an eager beaver. Let's try to use the idiom in one more situation. She says, "How can I impress my boss and show her that I really am committed to this job?" How might you respond to this? Great job. Let's move on to the quiz time. Please identify each idiom that you see. Great job. How did you do? If you need to go back, do so and check your answers. And once again, here are the idioms from our last section. Please review them and make sure that you know them. I hope that you will continue to be an eager beaver and finish all of the lessons in this course. Thank you for your participation, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to Lecture 40. Let's look at today's idiom. Deep pockets. What could this mean? Definition: to have a lot of or an excess of money. Example: we need to find some investors with deep pockets who can help us get started. Okay. And let's look at our picture. In this picture, we see a woman. She has her hands in her pockets, and it appears that money is falling out of the bottom of her pockets. So, we can assume two things. Her pockets are deep because her hands are in there, and there's money coming out. And we can also assume that she has lots of money if she doesn't mind it dropping out on the ground like that. So she has deep pockets. And someone who has deep pockets is someone who has lots of money. Do you have friends with deep pockets? Let's go ahead and try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, "What will you do if you need more funding?" How might you respond? I would respond in this way. I have many friends with deep pockets. They can contribute if I need extra funding. Let's try the second situation. She says, I have a great idea for business, but I have no funds to get started. How might you respond to this statement? Great job! And let's move on to the quiz portion of the lesson. Go ahead, identify the idiom as you see it. Incredible! If you need to, go back and check your answers. And please review the idioms from our last section. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Section 9. Talking about employees, Lecture 41. Let's look at today's idiom. Easy come, easy go. To begin and then end something casually or quickly. Here's an example. The huge profits we were enjoying last quarter are completely gone. Oh well, easy come, easy go. The implication of this idiom is that life can change quickly. The good success that we enjoyed just a little while ago can disappear very quickly. This idiom can also be applied to a person, someone who maybe shows up casually, stays for just a little while, and then leaves. Let's go ahead and look at our picture. In the picture, we see a man. He is very casually strolling. He doesn't seem to have any worries. He goes to the house, maybe stays just for a few minutes, and then he's gone. In this situation, we might say, easy come, easy go. The implication is life can change quickly, people can come and go, wealth can come and go. There's nothing we can do about it. We've just got to keep on living. Okay. Let's see if we can use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, Bob was just hired 3 weeks ago, and he has already accepted a job with a different company? How might you respond to this comment? Remember, use the idiom easy come, easy go, and show that you are not that concerned about Bob leaving. Go ahead and give it a try. And this is my response. Oh well, easy come, easy go. Let's try it in one more situation. She says, Where did Dave go? I thought he was staying for lunch. How might you respond to this comment? All right, great job. And let's move on to quiz time. Oh yeah. So, identify the idiom that you see in the picture. And today, we'll go fast. Okay, how did you do? Check your answers if you need to. And please ensure that you know the 5 idioms from our last section. Thank you once again for joining me in another lesson, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Congratulations on reaching section 10. You only have 2 more sections to go. Section 10 includes idioms that relate to probability, numbers, and proportions. Let's look at the idiom for lecture 42. A slice of the pie. Definition: a portion of the money or earnings. Example: our company made a huge profit this year. Everyone should get a slice of the pie, not just the executives. So, this means that the profits, or the money earned, should be divided among everybody. Everyone should get a slice of the pie. In our picture, we simply have a slice of the pie. We eat pie a lot in America. One of America's most famous traditional dishes is apple pie. And when we eat a pie, of course, it's shaped like a circle, and we divide it up and give everyone a piece who is there at the dinner table. In the same way, in a company or in some sort of financial enterprise, we should, and in most cases we do, divide up the earnings or profit. So, in that situation, we would say, everybody gets a slice of the pie. We can also use this idiom to refer to the entire economy. We can think of the entire economy as a pie, and everybody should get a slice of the pie. Okay, let's go ahead and use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, because the product was your idea, we will give you 2% of the profits. How would you respond to this comment? Use the idiom and think, do you think 2% of the profit is fair? Does he deserve a larger slice of the pie? It was his idea. Go ahead and give your response. Good. I might say, I am the one who came up with the idea for the product. I think I should get a bigger slice of the pie. Yes. So maybe this individual is very upset. It was his idea, and he's only getting 2% of the profit. Is this a big enough slice of the pie? Let's try the idiom in another situation. She says, will you be getting a bonus check this Christmas? So, a bonus check usually comes when a company has done well over a certain period of time and all employees can share that profit. How might you respond to this question? All right, good job. And it's quiz time. Woohoo! Yeah. And go ahead and identify the idioms as you see them. Good job. How did you do? If you need to, go back and check your answers. Also, please review the idioms that we studied in the last section. We've completed the first lecture for this section. Great job. Keep working, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome to Lecture 43, our second lecture in the section related to probability, numbers, and proportions. Let's look at our idiom for today. A long shot. A definition, a very small chance of succeeding. Example, there are 300 candidates applying for the job, so getting hired is a real long shot. So, obviously, if there are 300 candidates applying for a single job, there's a very small chance that a single individual will get hired. So, in this situation, we can use the idiom a long shot. Let's look at the picture. In this picture, we see someone playing basketball. Here we see the basket. The basket is a long way away. They are attempting to throw the ball into the basket. Do they have a good chance, a high percentage of making the basket? Do you think the ball will go into the basket? Probably not. It's a very low percentage, low chance. Thus, we say long shot to describe a situation where we have a very small chance of succeeding. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, how much profit do we need to make next year to survive? How might you respond to this question using a long shot? Go ahead and give it a try. And here is my response. We will need to make a 40% profit increase next year. It is a long shot, but we have no other options. So there's a very small chance that they will be able to increase their profit by 40%. They're going to try, but it's a long shot. Situation 2. She says, do you really think that your boss will let you miss work this Friday to go to the concert? How might you respond to this question? Okay, great job. And let's go ahead and start our quiz time to see how you are remembering the idioms we've learned up until this point. Go ahead, say the idiom when you see it. Great job. Go back and check your answers if you're not absolutely sure that you got everything correct. And take some time to review the idioms from our last section. Great job. I know you are working hard and that you will be able to finish this course successfully. It's not a long shot for you. So, see you in our next lesson. Thank you. English Idioms for Business Success, Lecture 44. And today's idiom, ballpark figure. Definition, a general estimate. Example, we will probably need about 6,000 new units. That is just a ballpark estimate. I will give you an exact number later. Ballpark figure. So, in this picture, we see a ballpark. A ballpark is typically a baseball stadium or an area where we play baseball. We call it a ballpark. And a figure is simply a number, sometimes an estimated number. So to represent this idiom, I have placed a figure, a number, over a ballpark. So a ballpark is a rather large area. It's not an exact spot. In the same way, a ballpark figure may include a wide range of numbers, but it indicates that it's somewhere in a general area. In the same way that a ballpark is a large area, but if we say we're at the ballpark, generally we could know where someone is if they tell us that. Okay, let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. He says, "What are the exact costs for the new equipment?" How might you respond to this question? And my response: I'm not sure, but I can give you a ballpark figure. In our next example, she says, "How much did you spend on marketing research last year?" How would you respond? Good job. And let's go here, and it's quiz time. Woohoo! And please say the idiom as you see each picture. Go ahead and check your answers. See if you got everything correct. And here are the idioms from our last section. Please review them and make sure that you know them perfectly. Thank you for joining me once again, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Goodbye. Section 10, Probability, Numbers, and Proportions. Lecture 45. Today's idiom, number crunching. Definition: to analyze numbers for the purpose of making decisions. Example: let me crunch some numbers, and then I will tell you if we can afford the office remodeling. In this picture, we see someone, she's eating, and she's eating numbers. Typically, crunching means to crush something. And we can crunch food with our teeth. So it means we break something into smaller pieces. That is the literal meaning. Of course, this figurative meaning means we are analyzing numbers. But to remember this, we have a picture of someone eating or crunching, crunch, 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 crunching the numbers. Let's go ahead and try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. Situation 1. He says, "Will the company be able to afford the luxury cruise for all employees?" How might you respond? My response: after crunching some numbers, I have determined that we can afford a cruise for all employees. Woohoo! Yes! We're all going on a cruise. Next one. Why haven't you told me if I will be laid off next month? How might you respond? Let's go ahead and do our quiz. Please say the idiom as you see the picture. We'll go super fast today, so be ready. Okay, go ahead and check your answers. Go back and make sure you got everything correct. Also, review the idioms from our last section. Make sure that you have retained them in your memory. Great job! Thank you for joining me in this course. And after doing a little bit of number crunching myself, I've determined that we have about 8 lectures left in this course. Thank you and goodbye. Welcome to lecture 46. Let's get started. Today's idiom, a free ride. Definition: to get a service or benefit without paying for it. Example: until now, you have gotten a free ride. From next month, I will start charging you for food and electricity. So, if someone is living with you and they're not paying for anything, they are getting a free ride. Our picture shows a taxi. The taxi says that it is free, so it's a free ride. We can understand this very simply. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, your coworker says, "Why do I always have to work for everything in life? I just want to sleep, eat ice cream, and play video games." How might you respond to this comment? And after you've made your comment, you can view mine. In life, there are no free rides. This is a common colloquial statement. We might say, in life there are no free rides, there are no free rides, right? Everything has a price, whether it's hidden or obvious. Let's try the idiom in another situation. She says, "James moved in 2 months ago, and he is not helping to pay the rent." How would you respond to this comment? I think she needs some help. Good job. Let's move into our quiz time. Please say the idiom as you see it. All right, great job with that. Go back and check your answers to make sure you got everything correct. And please review the idioms that we learned in our last section. All right, thank you for joining me in another course. And please remember, in life, there are no free rides. There's always a price, whether it's hidden or obvious. Welcome to our last section, section 11. Where has all the time gone? And where has all our time gone? We're on the last section. We're almost done. It's been so fun. Let's look at lecture 47. Today's idiom, flying by the seat of one's pants. Definition: to do something spontaneously without preparation. So, for this lesson, I didn't prepare. I'm reading this spontaneously and speaking spontaneously. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Here's another example. I had no idea I had to give this sales pitch, so I am just flying by the seat of my pants. Flying by the seat of one's pants. And in the picture, we can see a man. He's flying. The wings are attached to his pants, so he is flying by the seat of his pants. Okay, let's try using this idiom in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, "Are you ready for your presentation?" You haven't prepared for your presentation. How will you respond to this question? Go ahead. Here's my response. I had no time to prepare for my presentation. I guess I will just have to fly by the seat of my pants. Let's try one more. So in this second one, she says, "Do you really want me to present the data right now? I have not had any time to prepare." How will you respond? Go ahead, give it a try. Good job. Let's move into quiz time. Please say each idiom as you see the identifying picture. All right, good job. Go back and check your answers if you need to. And please review the 5 idioms from our last section. Thank you for joining me again, and good luck as you continue to study. See you in our next lesson. Welcome to Section 11. Where has all the time gone? This is Lecture 48. And let's get started. Today's idiom. Talk until one is blue in the face. Definition. To talk until one is exhausted. Example. He talked to the customers until he was blue in the face, but nobody wanted to buy his product. How sad. Okay, this is our picture. It's simple. The man is talking. He's been talking so long, he is blue in the face. Typically, people turn blue in the face when they're not getting enough oxygen. Sometimes babies, when they're born, haven't gotten enough oxygen and may be blue. The idiom implies that you've been talking so much and so fast, you haven't even been able to breathe, and so you're turning blue. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. Situation 1. He says, "Please just listen to my side of the story for 5 minutes." How could you respond to this request? Give it a try. I would say, "You can talk to me until you are blue in the face. I will never agree with you." Let's try one more. She says, "Please just listen to him. If you hear his idea, you will be convinced." How would you respond to this? Give it a try. Great job. And let's move on to the quiz portion of our lesson. Okay. As you see the picture, please identify the idiom. Great job. If you're not sure, that you have everything correct, please go back and check your answers. Also, take some time to review the idioms we learned in our last section. Okay, thank you so much for joining me in this lesson, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you. Goodbye. Welcome to Lecture 49, and let's look at today's idiom. At the 11th hour. Definition: at the last possible moment. Example: our investor finally transferred the funds to our account. She waited until the 11th hour to do so. So, in our picture, we see a clock. It shows 11 o'clock. And there is a man running. He must be rushing to do something at the 11th hour. Thus, we have the 11th hour, or the last moment. Let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In our first situation, he says, "Will the contract be completed and signed?" How might you respond to this question? Good job. And this is my response. The contract will be signed, but we will probably have to wait until the 11th hour. Let's do one more example. She says, "You have 15 minutes to turn in your sales report for this quarter." How might you respond? Very good. You probably said something to the effect that, "I know it's the 11th hour, but I will have the sales report complete." Let's go ahead and take a quiz to see how much you remember about the previous lessons. All right, great job. How did you do? If you need to, go back and check your answers. And please review the idioms from our last section. Make sure you know all of them. As we draw near the 11th hour of this course, I hope that you are going back and reviewing all of the idioms and making sure that you know them all. All right. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to Lecture 50. Let's look at today's idiom. This says, need something yesterday. To demand something immediately. Where are the notes from last week's conference? I need them yesterday. So, typically we would use the past tense when using the word yesterday. But this emphasizes the fact that I need it so much right now that honestly, I need it yesterday. So this idiom purposely uses the verb incorrectly to emphasize the idea that it is needed so badly. So let's look at our picture. In this picture, we can see an angry boss or employee. Obviously, he's upset. He needs something. When we look at the calendar, we see yesterday. He must have needed it yesterday. So we use this idiom to express the idea we need something now. Actually, we need it yesterday. So we use the grammar incorrectly to emphasize a point. Okay, let's try to use this idiom in a couple of situations. In the first situation, he says, I am still working on the market research. As the boss, what would you say to him? Give it a try. And I would say, why is the market research not on my desk? I need it yesterday. Obviously, the boss is very upset about this. Let's try one more example. When would you like the employee evaluations? You need them right now. How will you respond to her question? Give it a try. Great job. Let's move on to the quiz portion of our class. Okay? As you see the picture, say the name of the idiom it represents. Go ahead. All right, great job. So, if you need to, please go back and check your answers. Okay. And please review the idioms that we learned in our last section to make sure that you're keeping up and remembering everything. As we near the end of this course, you're probably thinking, I need another course like this. And you're probably thinking, I need it yesterday. Don't worry, another course will be coming out soon. Thank you for your participation, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to our last lecture in this course, English Idioms for Business Success. Let's look at today's idiom. So, this says, beat the clock. Definition: to complete something on time, usually at the last second. Example: you still haven't shipped the orders yet? You will have to hurry if you want to beat the clock. So, in our picture, we see a man. He's in a race. He's nearing the finish line, and it looks like he will beat the clock. But he's not beating the clock by much. It's a close race. So, when we use this idiom, beat the clock, we are usually completing something at the last moment and just barely beating the clock. Let's try to use these idioms. In our first situation, he says, have you submitted your application for the position? It is due today. How might you respond to this question? All right, how did you do? And this is my response. I say, I just need to finish my resume. I think I can beat the clock and submit everything today. Let's do one more example. She says, the boss will be here in 15 minutes. He will want to see your projections for the next quarter. I hope you are done. How would you respond to her statement? Give it your best shot. Great job. And let's go to our quiz. Please say the idiom as you see the corresponding picture. Let's begin. All right, great job. So, I hope you felt comfortable recognizing and saying all of those idioms. If you need to, go back and check your answers. In fact, you should probably go back and check all of the idioms to make sure that you know them now that we are finishing the course. Also, go ahead and make sure you know the idioms we learned in our last section. Here we are at the last lesson, and I hope that you have enjoyed and benefited from this course. Please look for more courses as I am making them now. Thank you so much for enrolling and completing the course, and I hope to see you again. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, you can always ask me, and I will do my best to respond as quickly as possible. Thank you.